Conference will now be recorded.
Thanks very much. Any comments on the meeting minutes? Changes?
I had sent, excuse me, I'd sent Becky a really minor change. I don't know if that got caught or not.
Yeah, that's why the minutes were included in the handout packet Monday. But yes, we did change that.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, can I get a motion for the approval of the October 15th, 2025 meeting minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes for the, or for October.
Thank you. Give a second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Same sign. Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. Thank you very much. And then we'll go to the, Tom will go on to you for the Regional Air Quality Council update.
Okay, great. I didn't get it in too far ahead of time. Do you guys want to play it from there, or do you want me to do that?
Oh, the PowerPoint.
If you could do it, Tom, that'd be good.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I will give that a try here.
I'm gonna make you a presenter here. There you go. You should be able to share.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, let's see if I can do this. Can you guys see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have just a few slides today to report out on our progress in completing this fall 2025 control strategy blueprint that I've updated you all on a regular basis. I provided the link to the endorsed version there. The RAC board discussed it for a couple of hours at their November 7th retreat and decided to endorse it for, of course, more work going forward. But this version is, locked in at this point, and that's what we'll be working from. So here were the updates we made between when I briefed you all in October, early October, and then what we added into this version that was endorsed. So we updated and finalized the recommendations. We added some primary recommendations that I'll walk through with you all. The secondary recommendations were unchanged, so those were endorsed as previously documented. We added a table. It's got a long name, Strategy Planning Analysis Summary Table, but it's sort of an easier to read table of this list of 20-ish strategies that we're exploring. It is an improvement upon the more detailed table that we had been carrying along with a lot of colored coding things. We moved that detailed table down into the appendix, and that's where you can access the briefing papers behind it. We held a modeling forum on October 30th, so we updated the references to the modeling tools and the info after that forum. We added a graphic to visually show the supporting efforts that are helping guide the blueprint development going forward. We also updated this engagement information document, and including all of our outreach with you all and others. We did receive 4 new distinct sets of comments in October, and those are documented and addressed in that engagement information. We made some updates to those briefing papers that you can link to based on refinements to make them more consistent, and some comments that we received. We did add 1 new paper to the strategy was already there, but there was no paper, so we got that filled in for what we are expecting to see from ongoing emission reductions in commercial buildings from the initiatives that the legislature and the governor have taken. So here's a couple of slides on the primary recommendation. The first one is the one that has been there all along. It's straight from our board, and that's to achieve the 70 part per billion ozone air quality standard in this 2030 to 32 timeframe that the Clean Air Act will require. And the way we would do that is for the board to propose a viable and sufficient package of emission reduction policies that can be implemented over the next 4 to 5 years. The second one is a little bit new, which we'll be doing tomorrow. It's an informational summary of this endorsed document. It'll be part of our testimony at the AQCC rulemaking tomorrow. So we're essentially briefing the AQCC on what is in the blueprint and future plans. It's not a request for action by the AQCC. Then a couple of additional primary recommendations are that we're going to keep working on this working blueprint, and we'll continue to develop and present our working plans, to further analyze these strategies that were listed in this document. We'll do that during 2026. And then we have the deliverable of a fall 2026 update to the blueprint work product. And then finally, we are going to request the AQCC allow us to brief them regularly on this strategic plan so that it won't be new information, that we can do that to complement the regular briefings they get from the AQCC and other agencies. And that way we can keep them up to date on the progress of how these strategies are being further documented and in some cases implemented, and that'll support them in their decision-making process. So this is the same timeline piece I've showed you all before, the buckets and the sort of 5-year, 7-year horizon with these milestones of measuring and modeling attainment, in the 2030 to 32 timeframe. So these outline really lays out kind of what we want to focus on in 2026, at least the first 3 quarters of it. We have a process underway to collaborate with the Air Pollution Control Division to better communicate how we are jointly and individually evaluating strategies so that we can bring those to the board, trying to get that written down so that there's a kind of a written procedure. We held this modeling forum, and so we have back on October 30th. So we've got these technical tools that allow us to evaluate the changes, the impacts of these strategy, the emission reductions on how the model estimates future ozone. We're going to put together a kind of a white paper on the current health burdens and costs with the ozone that we're measuring right now. And then we'll scope out the needed additional analysis of the control strategies in the document that we'll work on next year. So those are all things we hope to tick off in the first quarter next year. Then we're going to, quarter 2 and quarter 3 are really follow on, continue work on this collaborative evaluation process with the division, and we'll begin to present additional analysis of those fall 2025 strategies and complete the health burdens white paper. And then quarter 3 will be really focused on completing the analysis and the description and updating the descriptions. And then we'll get into a draft and a review cycle again with our board to get a fall 2026 version endorsed. So this is the language that the board approved. They put it in the form of resolution, so won't read you every word, but the November blueprint is endorsed. They have a guidance document for us, a development policy, so we're going to follow that. They're endorsing it overall, not any particular strategy, and directing us to do further work, and then do more outreach, planning, analysis, and revisit with the blueprint with them in 2026. So that's the language that endorsed it and sort of locks it in at this version to then begin working on next year. So we have a control strategy committee that actually usually meets the same day as the TAC here, first thing in the morning. We had a relatively short meeting this morning, so I just wanted to leave you all with what that group is doing going forward. You're welcome to join. You just register for it on the RAC website, and there's generally a meeting every month on the third Wednesday at 9 a.m. So immediate in front of us is the commission hearing that's going on, starts this afternoon at 4:30. So it'll include the parts or the partial serious implementation plan for the 70 ppb standard. There are a number of associated regulations that the division is bringing forward. It's fairly complex, actually. You can see the agenda, register. You can access all the meeting materials online. And we are a party along with about 12 or 13 other organizations to this rulemaking. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll present on the blueprint as an informational item. We're following on that October 30th source apportionment forum that we held on the decoupled direct method sensitivity tool. That's going to be on December 12th in the afternoon. That'll kind of wrap up our detailed technical deliverables for this year. You can register at this link. And then it's a follow-up to the forum on October 30th, where we have posted all the materials, the recording, and so that you can go back and look at those if you're interested in how we model ozone and what those results are showing. And then finally, we're going to take mercy on people and cancel the December meeting, the December 17th meeting. So that's already off our calendar. The next one will be the third Wednesday in January, and I'll continue to keep you all posted on further meetings and workshops in 2026. We will definitely hold workshops that are more topical. They'll be focused on large stationary sources, oil and gas sources, mobile sources. They'll be separate. We won't try to look at all those at the same time. So we'll get those scheduled well in advance in 2026 and keep you guys up to date so you can join in with those if you'd like to. So that's all my slides. Let me see if I can unshare here.
Thank you, Tom. Do we have any questions for Tom? Anyone online? Thank you so much, Tom, for presenting.
You're welcome.
We will move on to the APCD update, and Becky's going to provide that for us today.
Yes,
Brendan cannot be here today, so he provided me with a few updates to share with you all, specifically about two separate APCC meetings. So in the October meetings, that was the 15th through the 17th, the EDGE Environmental LLC adjudicatory hearing. The commission held an adjudicatory hearing regarding asbestos related to non-compliance issues for two apartment complexes, Pine Creek and Eagle's Nest. There was also regulation number 6, part A rulemaking hearing, the stationary source performance standards. The commission revised regulation 6, part A to incorporate by reference changes the EPA has made to its new source performance standards. Regulation number 8, parts A and B, so that's hazardous air pollutants performance standards, and they made revisions, the commission, their revisions to Reg 8, parts A and C, the MACT standards, as incorporated in the EPA changes. And then, as Tom mentioned, starting today through Friday is the ozone SIP and associated regulations hearings. So the APCC will consider proposed elements to Colorado's SIP under the 2008 and 2015 air quality standards and acts, and revisions to associated regulations, including 3, 7, 11, 25, and 26, and the air quality standards, designations, and emissions budgets. And that's it. Any questions for Becky? All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
A motion to consider the consent agenda or to approve the consent agenda as requested.
Perfect. And is there a second? Thank you very much. The motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion about that item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Great, the motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. Great, and then we'll move on to our first action item, the TMO call for projects. And Tanya.
All right, as you may recall, Erin presented on our TMO call for projects, in which took all of your recommendations and made some changes to our call for projects. We presented to the council earlier this month, and what we would like to do is ask for action to take it to council next month for their approval, so that we could open up the call for projects on the 5th of December for the TMO call for projects. So that's what we're requesting.
Any questions? Did you have more?
That was it.
We will entertain a motion. Sorry, can you repeat you wanted to open the call for projects on December 5th?
Well, I guess we're asking for your approval to take it to council.
Oh, sorry. Motion to take the TMO call for projects to council.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries. And we'll move on to our first discussion item, the Foothills Transit Station MMOF match relief request. And Joshua's going to do that.
Yeah, I have Spencer Smith with me as well. He's the civil engineering manager. That's the project manager for the Foothills Transit Station. And then Carissa Clinton, our senior grants analyst, should be on call, or will soon be on call, to assist me in case people have technical questions. So transport is seeking tax approval for match relief in the form of a reduced local match of 25% instead of the 50% for the city's existing MMOF grant, as well as the upcoming award from the recent MMOF reconciliation. Citywide budget cuts, declining sales tax revenue, and rising operational costs have significantly constrained available local funding. An updated project cost estimate expected by year-end is anticipated to reflect higher total costs. And Fort Collins has not yet fully identified the local match under the previous estimate. Adjusting the estimate to 25% will allow the city to keep this project moving forward while managing current financial pressures and maintaining capacity for other critical priorities. Under CDOT's local MMO program guidelines, applicants such as Fort Collins may qualify to use match rate of the county baser and may request project-specific match reductions with support from the NPO TPR and approval by the Transportation Commission. This match rate is also listed in the NPO's call for projects with the original MMOF funds. It lists Larimer County as 25%. There is a map attached. Attached a guidebook as well, but there's a map at the very bottom.
This map or?
After the CDOT's guidebook.
Okay. All their folks.
Sorry, I could have put out probably most of this. Yeah, I'm not very good.
In the world? I do not know it did. Stop it.
Just try typing the page number in inside 33 and just see if that. Nope. Okay.
That is very strange. a caching issue, it would let me. I'm gonna close out open handouts again. I'm not gonna do it through.
We're right on schedule. Maybe open
Open up.
the documents.
Yes, I just right past it. That would be. Not that.
No, that one.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Much better. All right, let me share my screen again.
Okay. So the yellow shading is for Collins city limits. The little blue cyan shading is what we plan to annex to put within city limits. And then the unshaded section is Laramie County. You can see that the entire transit station is pretty much in Laramie County, as well as a small piece of the roundabout. But because it's located in Laramie County, we're requesting, which has an adopted match rate of 25%, we're requesting to use the county's match rate. This is consistent with recent CDOT Clean Transit Enterprise decisions granting Fort Collins match relief under the same MMLF guidelines for their SB 230 formula program, as well as their capital call, which was approved yesterday. A favorable decision by TAC on this request would move the city closer to meeting its local match requirements for our federal raise grant, which is funding the majority of this project, positioning the project to advance to construction more quickly. Would result in total project costs being reduced to 75% while keeping the award amount the same and the local match cut in half. I can provide those numbers after this meeting. And this is a good opportunity to do so, as we would be able to amend, because the new MMR funds will amend the existing IGA. So the administrative needs to do that at this time. So, any questions or?
I'm just curious, so the land that was owned by City of Fort Collins?
The land on the Laramie County side, you mean? That is leased through Colorado State University. Yeah, it's a lot going on.
It serves their west campus, right? They're all of that's owned by, sort of the west campus.
Yeah, it's all CSU Board of Governors.
Well, hopefully I'll use transit to get to their jobs.
Yes, that is the hope.
Does this change, I guess, in terms of the math? The amount you're receiving from MMOF stays the same, this is just your matching amount, so if you've got more money to finish the project, like, how does that work, I guess?
God.
The amount, you don't get additional MMOF, or you do get additional MMOF?
No, we're not replacing additional funds. We're just requesting to reduce the match.
Okay.
We're using MMOF to satisfy part of the match to our federal grant,
Yeah.
along with a few other grants.
Okay.
And the local match for those smaller grants cannot be used back into the federal grant. We have to pay for them. So our original, between the first award and the upcoming award, our original local match requirement was $802,000, and it would cut in half essentially to $400,000.
So how would that change the scope of the project?
It wouldn't, it would just relieve us of the burden of coming up with $800,000, partially.
Does it allow you to put that towards the federal match then? If you have additional, it sounded like you needed additional funds, if the project estimates are coming in higher.
We do need to find additional funds, yes. That's a separate issue.
Yeah. But if you minimize this match, then you could, this can't be double counted to matching the federal, so that you could then use money. And this has to go to the next steps would be,
Then we need to go to council for discussion or coming back to TAC for recommendation, yeah. So the earliest that this could be approved by council would be January. Assuming you all agree.
I guess, does this open up the conversation for everything in counties then later to maybe take the match of the counties or?
Well, because this is actually in the county, I think that's why, but this makes sense, yeah. But if it was, on the other side of the street, let's say in the city W. Yeah. But because Fort Collins is the applicant, but it's being built in Larimer, then that makes, yeah.
Any other questions for Joshua?
Is there anybody else?
Anyone online? Thank you, I don't have that. Any questions online for Joshua?
I don't know the actual process with, I think we need to see out in the transportation.
So once the MPO would approve it, so the council would approve it, then we would also let Michael Snow know.
Oh,
And then it would go to whatever commission meeting we could get it on. Whether that's January or February, I don't. Yeah.
Thank you.
But the council has to approve it first.
Thank you very much. We'll move on. Our next discussion item is the 2022 through 2026 NFRMPO targets for safety performance measures. We have Michaela.
Can I get that? Yes. All right, everyone. So today we're going to be talking about the safety performance measures. I just want to start this conversation by saying we're going to focus on the performance measures today. At a later date, I'll be coming back to you all with a more broad regional safety conversation to have. But we're just going to focus on this today because we have a lot to cover in the time that we have. So before we actually get into targets, I wanted to do a bit of a statewide and regional crash data analysis, just so you all know kind of what's going on our region versus the state. So statewide, since 2022, we have seen a reduction in the number of fatalities. However, in our region, since 2021, we have seen an increase in our fatalities. I do want to note from 2023 to 2024, kind of the rate that it's increasing at is slower than the previous years, but we're still on that upward trend. For the statewide serious injuries, they've seen in just 1 year a reduction. The year prior to that, it went up. And then in our region, we're kind of seeing the same thing where we have a reduction from 2023 to 2024 in our serious injuries. And good news is in 2024, our number was lower than what it was in 2021 and 2022. And then for the state's non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries, they saw a decrease in the past year, whereas for us, we've been increasing since 2022. And then I wanted to get into kind of some common questions I got last year about our own crashes. So first, with the fatalities, I listed the top 4 crash types in our region. We have our broadside and pedestrian tied at number 1, and then kind of tied for second place, we have approach, turn, and head-on crashes. Most of the time, the weather condition is reported as clear. For our next one, the lighting condition, that's basically all the conditions it's more difficult to see in. So 63% of our fatal crashes happen when it's dark or dawn or dusk. In our fatal crashes, almost 22% of them, it's alcohol, marijuana, or other drugs are suspected being involved. And then almost 22% of our fatal crashes, it's reported that a safety restraint is improperly or not used at all. For our serious injury crashes, our top crash type is approach turn, would be second. Most common being broadside. Then after that is bicycle or motorized bicycle. And then our fourth place spot is overturning or rollover crashes. Almost 90% of the time it's clear outside when we have a serious injury crash. Almost 40% of our serious injury crashes happen when it's harder to see outside. For our alcohol, marijuana, or other drugs suspected, 21.5%. And then around 22% of the time, we have that safety restraint improperly used or not used. And then for our non-motorized fatal and serious injury crashes, they're reported as either a pedestrian crash or a bicycle or motorized bicycle crash. We're seeing it lean a little bit more in 2024 towards our pedestrians, but we still have a high amount of bike or motorized bicycle crashes happening. For our weather condition, 98% of the time it's clear. For these crashes, almost 43% are happening when it's harder to see outside. Our alcohol, marijuana, or other drugs suspected is much lower than what we saw in the other two that we looked at, but it's important to keep in mind that sometimes hit and runs happen, especially with our pedestrians or our cyclists, and so there may not be someone to even look into at the time of the crash happening. And again, kind of same thing with the safety restraint, improperly used or not used. Oftentimes the focus may be on our vulnerable road user and not who's in the car. Do you have something to add, Dana?
Quick question on bicycles and motorized bicycles. We're tracking those together?
That's how the state reports it, and I have no field that tells me if it's one or the other. They're just combined in the state records.
Similarly, are like scooters included in the pedestrian counts or other kind of mobility assisted devices like chair?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can ask the team at CDOT that codes these. I don't have access to the field that gives like the description of what happened, which is part of the problem there. There isn't a separate category for our scooters, I will say that. So I actually am 100% sure where they're put with our state data.
I think currently that's most states are combining them. I think it's through the crash code classification standard that they
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
My assumption is it's either with the pedestrians or our cyclists, but unsure on that one. Also last year, I got asked quite a bit about when these types of crashes are happening. So in each row, I've got our fatal, our serious injury, and our non-motorized fatal and serious injury crashes. This is the amount of crashes that are happening in each month. In kind of the red, I've highlighted the top month, yellow the second highest month, and for our non-motorized, we had 2 months of tide, so they're just both in red there. So just wanted to highlight this for you all, for your information. Now we're going to move into the targets themselves, now that we've kind of established what's going on in the region with our crashes in the past year. So PM1, the safety targets, include 5 different targets. These targets are set by state DOTs and the NPOs annually. Targets are based on a 5-year rolling average. They must be data-driven. The NPO itself has a separate aspirational goal. It's called Towards Zero Deaths. It's our policy we adopted in 2020. And really, by it being data driven, we can't just say, oh, next year we're going to have 0 crashes. If we maybe don't think that we have the data or the policies to support that ultimately. The target setting options are to either support CDOT's statewide targets by agreeing to plan and program projects which contribute to the achievement of the state's targets, or we can set regionally specific targets. Real quick, what are the 5 safety targets? We have number of fatalities, we have the rate of fatalities per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, we have the number of serious injuries, the rate of serious injuries per 100 million vehicle miles traveled, and we have the number of non-motorized fatalities and non-motorized serious injuries. So the conversation of setting statewide versus regional targets, through 2023, our NPO supported CDOT statewide targets, and then in 2024 and 2025, our planning council approved regional targets instead of supporting the state targets. So I've got a list of some considerations for you all here. Setting regionally specific targets provides a more accurate reflection of safety in our region. The NPO has no set funding for safety-specific projects at this time, which would directly contribute to crash reductions. However, I do want to note that quite a few of our communities have a Vision Zero or a safety action plan complete or in development, which could make them eligible for additional safety funding, if that funding is available, of course. There's no financial penalty to the NPO for not achieving or making significant progress towards our targets. However, the NPO could maybe be penalized administratively through our certification reviews for not meeting our targets. However, that's more of like a, hey, you didn't meet your targets, you should do better on that. It's really just that, I would say. And then we must adopt either all the statewide targets or all the regional targets. We can't mix and match just based off whichever one we like best. We go all or nothing with state or regional. And then the first time we set regional targets was the 2020 to 2024 period for the targets, and we have actual data on that now. So I just wanted to show that to you all, how the targets are set. For these ones specifically, they were set in early 2024. We used a forecast equation for future crashes in 2023 and 2024, since we didn't have numbers for those at that time. And then we use those to average the number of crashes from 2020 to 2024. I've written that down because I know that kind of confusing listening to that. And then whenever I looked at our actual numbers, now that we have 23 and 24 data, we met none of those targets. I also just want to note, after recent discussions with other NPOs in the state on how they set their targets, we all do it a little bit differently. So we do what's closest to what the state does. We use a forecast equation to predict the next 2 years of crash data based on 10 years of the actual crash data that we have. Dr. Cog calculates the number of reductions needed per year to achieve 0 roadway fatalities and serious injuries by 2040, in line with their Vision Zero policy. And then PACOG, they, for the first time ever this past target setting period, they decided to do a 15% reduction from 2023 to 2025. They don't have a policy in place that states that that's what they do. But that is what their staff decided worked for their region and in collaboration with the region. And so I just want to kind of pose this question to you all. We can do a % reduction if we would like, as long as we think it's realistic for our region, and that still falls under data driven. The state has had no issues with the NPOs setting their targets, or other NPOs setting their targets that way. So just to consider as we go through this, if we do decide to adopt regional targets again, should we consider a % reduction each year? instead of using a forecast equation, because that forecast may say it's going up, or we look at kind of what's happened historically and we know that, starting in 2020, things went really wacky, so it's kind of on us to consider how should we do this. And then I also just wanted to highlight our adopted safety policies in our region. So a lot of these are very in line with Vision Zero type policies where we're looking for 0 fatalities and serious injuries. The NPO itself, we don't specify a number percentage a year that we want to have 0 by. We're just working towards 0 deaths. And I've actually got that policy in front of me if we want to chat a little bit about what we highlighted there. So really the big thing from that resolution back in 2020 for the NPO's policy, the NPO and its member communities agreed to work towards eliminating serious injuries and deaths by continuing to prioritize safety in future calls for projects, analyzing all available crash data to make more informed decisions, integrating towards 0 death framework in future planning initiatives, provides regionally specific crash data to compare to statewide crash data when possible, and identify crash types and characteristics which are most prevalent in the region, as well as best practices to mitigate those specific crash types. And then I also want to note that Tinmouth and Loveland will begin their safety plan development soon. So within the next year or two, we're going to have more communities on this list. So our first option is to support CDOT statewide targets. I've used our color coding again to kind of show if the target has increased or decreased from the one set last year. For the state, their fatalities are in the green, so they're setting their targets lower than they did last year, whereas anything serious injury related or for the whole non-motorized category, those are all an increase in the target from the year before. I can pause and let us all look at this. And then for our regional targets, I've kind of presented 2 options here today, but again, very open to discussion on this. The target option 2 is the same methodology we have been doing the past 2 years, where we're taking a 5-year average for each target using 22 to 24 actual data and using a exponential smoothing forecast equation to predict what will happen in 25 and 26. And then up here, I have under option 3, this is a 1% reduction each year. And I have given this as an example. We can definitely discuss if this is the route we want to potentially go, what that actual percentage reduction should be, since I have no official NPO-wide policy giving me that number. And then just kind of in comparison with the targets we looked at for the state, remember for the state, their fatality target decreased from the year before. Ours is increasing. However, we have the opposite happening with our serious injuries, where our target for both of these options is a lower number than what we set last year, and the state was predicting something higher. And then with both our region and the state, no matter which option we go with, are non-motorized or increasing from the targets we set last year. And then I wanted to give you all a comparison of what the forecast equation gives us versus a percentage reduction, what we may see with that. And keep in mind the numbers are rounded to whole numbers. So, like, okay, it's 50 this year, why would it be 50 next year? It's the rounding, just using the 1% reduction. So in the gray is what the forecast equation is giving us for serious, or for the fatalities, which, considering our fatalities have gone up for quite a few years, that's quite a significant drop the forecast equation gives us between 24 to 25. I know, at least for me, this kind of puts some alarm bells in my head. You know, I know that we are working as a region, like quite a bit of us have Vision Zero or safety plans now, you know, adopted, but a lot of them were adopted in 2025. So it does take time to get there. I mean, projects don't just happen overnight. So the orange is a comparison to what a 1% reduction would look like. And again, open to having a conversation on a different percentage. And then for our serious injuries, same thing, where the gray is what the forecast equation is giving us. It's predicting that we will go back up based off historical data. Whereas if we use the 1% reduction, it would be little, like a slight reduction each year, I would say. So again, have that conversation, is the forecast equation what we think reflects our region? And then for our non-motorized, I'd say the forecast equation and the 1% reduction are fairly similar. They're both predicting, or the forecast equation is predicting an increase or a decrease, mixing up my words here. And then 1% reduction would still give us a decrease. So I've got some next steps here. It depends on if we need a second discussion on this or not. With no further TAC discussion needed, I would take this to Planning Council for discussion next month with anticipated Planning Council adoption in January, and targets are due to CDOT by the end of February. If we need a second discussion on this, I would come back to you all next month to talk about it. I would go to Planning Council to discuss it in January, and then the earliest it would be adopted by Planning Council in February. Go that route. So, time for some discussion. Got two questions for us here. Do we want to support CDOT's statewide targets or continue to set our own regional targets? And then if setting regional targets, how would we like to calculate them? And again, we can discuss if a 1% reduction, if we want to go the reduction route, if that number should be different. I did write down what the target for option 3 would be if we went with either a 1.5 to 3 or 5% option. But again, if that's the route we want to go, we can come back next month and kind of do the full graph breakdown we see, like from slides 22 to 24. So open to discussion. Yes.
Hey, Michaela. I had a comment back, I think it was 3 slides ago, on serious injury. I just wanted to point something out.
Yes.
I believe CDOT mentioned at the Traffic Safety Summit this year that I think it was 2020 to 21, they changed their serious injury classification. So there's a broader range of what was included in that threshold. Don't quote me 100% on that, but I'm fairly confident that was a discussion that happened in other states as well. So considering that skew and change, perhaps a 5-year horizon would be more consistent with capturing a lot more recent understanding of what's included as a serious injury crash. I think that would be one thing to consider for this one specifically.
That's fair. Although at least for like this year's target setting, we would only have 4 years of data to go off of that, right. 21 to 20. I think we're keeping that in mind. But yeah, now that you mentioned that, I feel like I've heard that too.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to like, you know, when you're talking about goal setting, because there's so many little things that change. Like, yeah, I feel like these graphs need to have like historical, like here's how they change, and like big project came online, but it's so hard to capture all that. Yeah, just wanted to mention.
Yes.
A couple of slides back, you showed what some of the municipalities that have adopted Vision Zero action plans
Yes.
are doing, and I think that a good number of them had 0 deaths and 0 injuries by a certain date.
Mhm.
And Dr. Cog, I think, had showed something similar. But for the communities that are beginning to work on action plans, do you have a feeling, I think that was 10 minutes and 11, or do you have a feeling that you may or may not adopt something similar?
I think the recommendation in the Safe Streets for All, it sounded like they wanted a firm commitment to that. We've gone to council, we do have a proclamation that they made toward, and I think there was a date set.
20% by 2035.
A goal like that, but I think part of what Safe Streets for All, one of the reasons our safety action plan didn't meet all the criteria is because we didn't have a commitment to a date to get to 0. And so I think some of that may have changed recently in most, that may have been the previous.
It's
We need
target,
it, but.
yeah, I think it's a target for an eventual, targeting 0.
Or showing
someday.
like progress at it. And so even though ours didn't say like when that 0 was supposed to be, it's at least saying if we're doing 20% by 2035, then like, we're gonna get there.
I think we're all in this work because we want to get to 0, right? But we're also, well, many of us are mathematicians, and watching these trends is very hard to say we're gonna get to 0 by 2032 or whatever those dates are. It's very challenging because they're ambitious goals, they're bold goals. Our hope is that technology and other things will help us get there.
So that was a lot of statement, really no question. So the question at the end of all that is, what is the penalty if we continually are not meeting our goal?
For MPOs, there's,
The state, in theory, has a penalty, but I think they basically say, hey, this is what we're going to do to work on it, and it's like, okay, then work on it.
and the penalty is they have to spend their age funds.
Yes.
They do.
Thank you.
Health penalty if you're one of them, right? That's one of the main.
Yeah. That's good.
Can we go back to the slide that has the Dr. Cog and the other, because I think, obviously we want to set goals that are realistic, and at the same time, why do we set targets? It's, hopefully inform our decisions and help us, and make some changes and think about things differently. So I personally really like the way Dr. Cog has structured it, like, this is where we're trying to go. What do we need to do to get there? And even if it is ambitious, and, again, not that we want to set goals we can't meet, but also like, why aren't we meeting? Like, what can we be doing better? So and I understand like different communities have different timelines, so that's a little bit tricky to balance, but I would prefer to see more of like what is our ultimate, if we all agree safety is our number one priority, we all want to eventually get to 0 fatalities, then we should probably start doing things differently.
The only issue with that is they have an actual date, Dr. Cog does. We do not with our resolution, we just towards 0 deaths. There was no agreement on a date with that. So we would need to go and get council, we would need to come up with a date that we would propose to council, and then they would need to agree to that. I don't think that would happen before we need to do these targets, but maybe the ones next year. So as a long-term thing, I agree. I think that would be a great idea. But for this setting, I don't know that we would be able to get that accomplished.
Maybe, I'm curious, I would be curious to know like what percentage reductions Dr. Cog is looking at each, like, 'cause I don't know, like, are they talking about
a 20% reduction every year.
Yeah, I'd have to relook. Instead of just doing a percentage reduction, they say in each category you need like this number less each year. I actually have not calculated what that percentage ends up being, but
Maybe there's a way we could be creative and like somehow get to, set ourselves up to get to that zero without.
I also just want to note that like whenever the 2020 NPO resolution came about, there was discussion at the time of should we do something more aligned with Vision Zero, and that's just not what was wanted at the time. Yes.
Another thought, I think, be really interesting to kind of consider this, and I don't think it's coming up with a new performance metric, but to look at fatal and serious stacked as a chart, maybe that's, we already have that in our dashboard, because it is a win. Oftentimes, I mean, it's hard to make this story. You can see boots in the ground. It's a win sometimes when your fatals go down, your serious go up, because it's like, that was a golden hour crash, perhaps, where it could have been a fatality. And so a lot of the efforts folks do for the golden hour side is actually increasing the serious injury number, reducing the fatal number. So that's another, it's kind of nebulous, right?
But also more statistically valid. I think that combining those two actually helps us predict it better if we combine those, or look at them as a whole, because it really is sometimes chance, right? If someone, how old was somebody when they got in a crash? Could they survive it or sustain it? So the nuance of what's happening there means a lot to the person, obviously, but it's maybe easier to predict if we combine those two.
That's a good idea. I know for actually setting the targets, this is what's nationally required of us.
I know that NRLE had a question. What's the role of bright LED headlights during these weather conditions? Is that something that's important? Do we know?
I don't know that. Again, I don't have the crash description available in the statewide data set, so if that was listed somewhere, would in theory be there?
Be something we could ask to see. I mean, personal experience there, full lighting, so.
Yeah.
In terms of the two questions that you posed, I guess I really like the regional, more specific regional look at this. I think it helps us to track better with our communities and what we're seeing in our communities. And I think having that, so for question number one, I think the regional is something that I definitely heard that from the council last time, and I feel like that's something that helps all of us have more, that we feel like we have more impact on that than all of the state schools. And then I just am curious about the calculation. I know we don't have to get into the calculation, but I was just curious if you could send that out, sort of what the prediction model.
I can send that out. And then, yeah, I will just say, like, I threw 1% out there because the only community I had a percent reduction for was Weld County. And I think they're a little closer to the 1.5%-ish. But I didn't want to throw something out there where you're all like, whoa. So again, open it. That's what we want to do.
I'm okay with it being a big, I think a big ambitious goal in this space is important for our work, and it's something that not attaining these, but making a great effort to try to attain them, I think is important too. So I sort of like the more ambitious, probably option two, and having a lower number of fatalities would be the direction I would pick, or the overall reduction. I do like seeing a percent reduction.
So with option two, that also means the increase in the serious injuries.
Yeah, which again makes sense for able to, people are able to survive the crashes.
And we can go with option two this year and have it more of a long-term goal of seeing if we can adopt either a percentage reduction, a Vision Zero reduction with our planning council. I just learned that other NPOs calculate them different, like 2 weeks ago. So I wanted to get that information in front of you all, that we have options that are still considered data driven for these targets.
Or if we did a percent reduction, but had a larger percentage, that I can support that. Either way, but I do like having a more regional report.
I think full complement would support a regional approach as well, so option 2, but setting an ambitious goal or a vision 0 goal, I think would be our preferred step, but or a high percentage.
For the future or for this year? Like for the targets right now or over the next year work on?
Over the next year.
Oh, we're coming up with a date that we could then get council to agree to.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, or anyone online?
I had a quick one, just real quick. And this isn't related to this recommendation or the discussion, but I think what would be helpful from an MPO perspective is, we've got in that slide that showed like the alcohol and drug percentage, we've got very specific behavioral factors versus operational issues. So we're setting targets overall, but some of them are about behavioral things outside of our control that we can affect change on sometimes, like your alcohol and your drug crashes, right? And how they're ignored sometimes in those, from an engineering perspective of operational improvements. But is there something that the MPO that we could be assisting all of you guys with from a safety perspective to help with the overall of, hey, for our region, we are all trying to work together to zero deaths? I think where I'm coming from is that all the communities are doing their own safety action plans, and I'm trying to really help. Staff and I, we've been having the discussions about what is our role to support all of you look like from a regional safety perspective. We have to set these targets. We have to do this as part of the effort. But is there something as an MPO that we could be doing to help support that safety messaging with achieving these targets? Because it kind of falls on our community's members to make these improvements. But how can we as an MPO be in that role to help support you as part of maybe even those behavioral factors?
I think even the criteria for grants where projects are actually moving a needle or actually fix a problem, they actually are going to help move the needle. I think when we do grant calls for projects, the scoring around safety is super important. It's something that ebbs and flows for different calls. And sometimes it's more theoretical. Is this really going to make something safer? It feels good to say it, but are we actually moving the needle? Are we actually going to make the system better? And I think that's something, as we do, calls for projects and funding prioritization, safety should be at the top of all of our lists, right? And when we're doing projects, hopefully, safety is a part of all of that. And in our scoring for criteria, I think is something that I see the NPO can have a huge impact on when we set up those processes.
Just to kind of build on that, also, I think it was mentioned, thinking about like the before and after analysis of projects, and these projects that, we're saying are safety projects, like being able to do an analysis of like, this is what it was scored off of, this is what the application said, and this is like what we've seen. And I know that's a difficult thing for any of us to do, but trying to like kind of get that real world, this is what's happening.
Anna Rose, would that be in collaboration with the MPO or what the MPO is analyzing afterwards? Just since we're talking about how the MPO.
Yeah, thinking about like specific MPO funded projects. So the MPO like doing that kind of analysis.
Okay.
In partnership with the local.
Yeah, we can pull data and stuff, and
That would be pretty straightforward, like some of these safety action plans actually say, hey, this recommendation's got a crash modification factor X, and then you just run the numbers in the future. Elizabeth, another thing I was thinking about, as you mentioned, that is like education and messaging, whether it be social media, websites, radio, is any of that happening in northern Colorado? Is there any agencies doing that kind of push for education and safety behaviors?
Aside from the state patrol, I don't.
I know we're doing some around bike ped
In your
and
state
drivers
routes.
and interactions with bike ped.
You guys have a huge program for safe routes to school and training kids, and then you touch almost every elementary school.
Yeah, I would say, continuing to like, yeah, help that education, and I think that piece about driver behavior and like our culture is really interesting because, you know, do we say nothing we can do, or do we actually say we need to look at how can we as regional, you know, how can we as NPO and as the local agencies address that? One thing just for awareness, like, or consideration, like I do think there's still a need to build support and advocacy around safety. Like our plan was not unanimously adopted, right? So there is still, and it sounds like when this conversation came to the council, it wasn't, they weren't ready to like adopt that goal. So I think we still have some work to do around just like education, advocacy. I'm not quite sure what the word I'm looking for is, but if there's resources to help, or if there's ways the NPO can be more of that voice of like, what it is our responsibility as we're looking at our transportation system.
So are you all comfortable with Michaela taking option 2 as the recommended option moving forward for this year, working on getting to option 3 for next year to council at the summer meeting, or do you want to have another discussion about this at your December?
I think it might be good to get your feedback on it too earlier and maybe take one of the, I know we heard some option 3 requests. I don't know if that is us deciding on a percentage.
Michaela could say, oh, you know, the TAC is wanting to do an option 3, but we need input on what that percentage would look like at the December CAC meeting. We're gonna look at percentages. But this is not something you would be deciding for this round, this would be next year.
Yeah, I think it might be helpful to get their perspective sooner than later and sort of hear some of the concerns. This is a great presentation, very informative, so. We may have new members too, right? We have a couple changing out some of the big lofty topic for theirs.
And that sounds good. We seem to agree that TAC recommendation for right now is option 2, then I will let the council know that, but still let them know we're interested in option 3 next year going forward. Right. And do you mind just pulling up my contact? So since the last time I've been in a meeting with you all, my last name has actually changed, so I just wanted to highlight my new last name is Gralum. I have a new email address. I am still getting the emails to my old address, but all new replies will come from this one. So if you have me on an email list, if you're able to remember, try to change it over. I've also gotten my email signature, you know, the reminder that my last name is changed. So yeah, just wanted to let you all know that. Thank you all.
Thank you, that's great. All right, we'll move on to our next discussion item, the 2026 Public Involvement Plan kickoff. John.
Hello, everyone. This is a kickoff for the 2026 Public Involvement Plan for the North Front Range NPO. All right, so the Public Involvement Plan, which we call the PIP, includes details on how the public can be engaged in the NFRMPO's planning process. I should also say, and stakeholders. This document provides schedules, common opportunities, and information on how members of the public and stakeholders can be actively engaged in the transportation planning process. Utilizing the various strategies identified within this document, the public and stakeholders will be engaged early and often with an understanding of how their feedback will be incorporated into the planning process. North Front Range NPO strives to meet people where they are and make engagement as easy and accessible as possible. So this is the various strategies that we currently have for our public involvement. We have our social media, which we'll get to a slide on later. We do various outreach events throughout the community. We have our website, which has all sorts of materials, but a few. We have our calendar, our public comment opportunities page, and our meeting materials where you can find minutes and video recordings. We have our quarterly newsletter, which sometimes we reach out to you all for articles and that. We have various surveys. For example, we currently have the Freight Public Survey, which is out, and then we'll also have another one, which we'll talk about in a second. We have interactive mapping. So in the past, we've done the bike ped reporter tool. That's currently not active, but we are working on various other interactive maps and dashboards, such as the safety dashboard. We have plan-specific outreach strategies. So each plan is going to have a different way of doing outreach, such as bike ped plan is going to be a little different than freight. We're going to be talking about our GIS open data. We're going to have a contact database for each of the plans we do. Again, the difference between active transportation or freight. We're going to talk about the various form options that we have on our website. So we have a contact us, you can give us website feedback, and we also do data requests through forms. We're going to be talking about our consistent graphics and branding, and also how we do our meetings, which is hybrid format, and also trying to go throughout the region. What will be new with this plan? We're going to be talking about the differences between public and stakeholder engagement. We're going to be talking about differences between NFRMPO events versus events that only the mobility team goes to versus our Back to Work Day celebrations. We'll be we'll be talking about information on hosting a public meeting. We're talking about our open NFRMPO GIS open data information, the use of forms, the accessibility information offered with the website, presentations, documents, everything. Our NFRMPO graphics and branding, our cognitive databases, and our outreach locations map, which I will show in a second. This is the list of what will be updated from the previous plan. So we will have updated social medias, which we recently added Friends of Blue Sky, and we also reinstated our Twitter. There's all sorts of federal legislation that needs to be updated in the plan. We've updated our social media purposes and uses. We're currently working on an overhaul for that. We have updated maps for limited English proficiency and internet access broadband. We have updated outreach information, such as the types of information or the types of events we'll be going to and the types of events we'll be giving out. And we're also going to be updating how we define success for the NFRMPO and the public and also stakeholders. So for this new plan, we're going to be conducting a survey from the public to hopefully just gauge how we can best engage them. So the survey will include questions such as what community you live in and work in. In general, how do you hear about news events in your community? How would you be most likely to provide input to the NFRMPO? Which of the following social media platforms are you active on? Which of the following event types are you most likely to attend? Do you know the function and purpose of an NPO and what we do? And then what NPO services are most important to you? A lot of these questions were taken directly from the Dr. Cog PIP, and it seems that they've been successful with that so far. This bright, colorful screen is all of our social medias. So if you're not already, we encourage you to follow us. And we also do our best to repost and like things that you are doing if it's transportation or related. So we appreciate you doing the same for us. This is just a little bit on our updated outreach strategy. So we're going to be attending more farmers market types of events because we have found that we have better, more meaningful engagement at those types of events, whereas other events feel like we may just be handing things to children for a couple hours. So we're kind of going for more of a quality over quantity approach. We're going to start attending more events year round, not just in the summer, although in the winter time we do prefer indoor events. We've been doing more student events at universities, such as the CSU opening day student event, whatever it's called. Yes. We're not going to be doing any more multi-day events just because of the impact that has on staff. Just overall doing a more targeted outreach events. So if we have different plans or activities that would be better for that particular event, such as the biking event, we're going to pertain it more to that. Then we're also going to be, we're considering hosting an NFRMPO event. More information on that later if we even want to do that, but if we do, it would require, or hopefully all of you would want to be involved, as that would help us out. This is the map of the outreach events locations that we have done in the year 2025. So this is to be used by the public, so they know where they can find us, but also internal use to make sure or identify any gaps where we aren't doing outreach. And then also this data can be layered with various different other maps, such as limited English proficiency, lack of internet access, so on and so forth. And then we have multiple discussion questions to ask around. So do you have any outreach event suggestions for us in your communities? What outreach strategies have been successful for your community? How does your community incorporate children into the outreach process? Are there any strategies we are missing? Are there any future strategies or technologies we should be aware of? Are there any social media posts or videos that would be beneficial for the North Range NPO to post? Is there anything we've done in the past that we should continue? And kind of related, that's something we're just discussing, but does your community have an AI policy? I'll put it up to all of you.
I will just say the keep doing part, you guys show up to events, you bring great energy, and we've always gotten comments on how much people appreciate that you're there, so. And I see you out in the wild often, concerts and things. Yeah, so thank you for what you have been doing, I feel like it is effective. Do you want a copy of our, we do have an AI policy we can send you? Do you want?
Yep, sure.
That would be great, because we're starting to think about how we would.
Are there any, so several years ago, we did a series of NPO 101 kind of videos, about 3 minutes long, about the RTP and various plans and what is an NPO, things like that. Did anyone think those were beneficial? We're thinking about refreshing some of them if people thought they were beneficial for the newer plans that were, or the updates to plans we're doing. Are there other topics that we should look into doing?
Are y'all starting a TikTok?
No,
It's fine.
not a strategy of it.
I do love videos, because I think those are helpful if people are seeking that information, so that would be very helpful.
And Jerome had an idea for a like pet related one for trail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want me to share that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I can. So an idea I had is we're aiming to a point where many of or some of our regional corridors are getting completed. So maybe not the entire corridor, that would go on too long, but doing a video kind of highlighting some of these corridors and showing what they look like, what sort of amenities, why people should want to get out onto the trails. So what that is going to have those sections in between communities to show that there's this underpass on I-25 you can get from Fort Collins to soon, really, using this trail, or going to particularly interesting parts in the corridor, in the corridors of different communities to show what's there, with the hopes that people will see that and then be encouraged to go check it out. It would also be fun to make.
Strap the camera to his helmet.
Yeah. I can see it now.
He does have an e-bike, so.
And so I can get pretty far.
But yeah, so things like that. And if you have ideas that come to you, you know, later, that's also fine. Just email them to John.
Do you think social media and outreach meet people where they are, right, is a super important part of the videos?
Is there anything that we should stop doing? Or that you have found when you're doing your outreach has not been successful and you're like, don't do that?
I was curious on specifically, children, right? I mean, defining like age range of that, is it's generally like elementary school age? Is high school part of that discussion?
I think, yeah, anyone who's under 18, yeah.
I know for like comp plan and other processes, like we've gone to high schools to like get their thoughts on planning things, and that's hyper like local engagement on a project. When did this kind of effort start for social like engagement and getting out there for?
We've been doing this since I've been here, and that's back since 2014, so,
Cool.
yeah. At least 2014. Plus. One of the things that we've been talking about with planning are, well, for one, having city projects where we will communicate that with you at a later date. But one of the things that was brought up was like how we can have something for kids. We're working with our Parks and Rec department, and they have, especially for summer events, they have like a rec trailer that they bring, and so they have all these activities and their staff that can like kind of help work with, like, entertain children while, you know, the parents are talking to people. We don't know what that's gonna look like for our, like, city projects fair, since it will be indoors in a much smaller space. We're taking that into consideration, but potentially at least having like some kind of activity station for them, or like coloring pages or something like that. But as those ideas get more fleshed out, to share what comes of that.
And we are considering having an event, sort of like the Fort Collins Project, Transportation Fair, the one that you're considering at Leavenworth, for the MPO. Where we would host it, when we would do it, TBD. But we would want to have our member communities come to it, probably in a more central location. But that's something we're looking at doing. Timeline on that, I don't know, but that would be something where we would want to have our community involved in that as well.
I would just say that Fort Collins has been a really wonderful knowledge sharing asset as far as like planning that kind of event, so
Lauren,
ask
maybe
them, yeah.
I could put you in touch with Lauren Megan. She's just done a great job with that. On our public involvement office has been really challenged with our new website, and when I see new items coming from the NPO in order to help sort of augment getting that out, it just it helps when I can say, oh, there's a new posting here. Could we repost this? Is there a way that we could you could alert us when to ping our public involvement folks to put this out on social media, and maybe an importance level?
If we know who, I say we, I'm Jonathan right now, if he knows who to contact, tell him, okay, we need to let Dana and Anna Rose and Victoria know that this, whatever it is, has been posted, then yeah. Yeah, we can do emails for the people that are in charge of retweeting or reading.
That'd be great. I would reach out to each community and ask for that.
We have had some success with like paid advertisements for social media. You kind of target it to a certain area. I don't know what that would look like to the whole region. But if there are like, if you had a great video showcasing something, you could, tie it to that area. We also have a good relationship with the school district in Greeley, and so we try to do a lot, like look for opportunities, like if there's a class or students that are interested in something that we're working on, like we have those relationships. I also think, some of the, just like what is planning and why do we plan, like that's something, really that we're trying to do a better job of communicating. So, there might be opportunities to connect with the schools on that. Well, also, I think what you guys have stated about meeting people where they're at, going, farmers markets are usually pretty successful events for us. We're going to like places we know people are going in already. We do like QR codes, mirror projects, or planned projects. I will say, at least in Greeley, we're struggling with just people feeling over surveyed, and they're like, why are you asking my opinion again? So it sounds like I didn't see survey on here, so I think just being out in the community is helpful.
At the last NACTO conference, they gave a session on public outreach and sort of new strategies hopefully is online. And it was short, but Steve, there were a lot of discussions on what was successful and sort of emerging. NACO, yeah, Association of Civil Transportation.
I'll call out a specific question just because we are looking for ideas. Just, is there anything that we could post on our social media as, so for, again, between the level of posting on local accounts versus statewide accounts, anything at our level that would be good and beneficial for your communities, or just any ideas?
Sales tax solution.
And as things come up, if that's something that you think, there's something you think that we should repost or post, just you can let any of us know, or me or John. It'll get posted. We'll get it to the right person to do that.
Anyone else? Okay. There's my contact, and there's the webpage where you can get more information on the public involvement plan if you want.
Our outside partner reports, we'll go ahead and start with the NOCO banking.
All right, so for NOCO banking head, last week we had an in-person event at the Milliken Athletic Center. And the focus of this event was small community bike ped planning. We really wanted to see what barriers smaller communities have with bike ped planning and what NOCO can do to assist with that. Some of the suggestions coming out of that include simplifying call for projects, to recognize that small communities don't have the same amount of capacity to fill out grants. Other suggestions included looking at strategies to assist with that, with those grants, where that is providing data, helping with mapping, things of that nature. And then as part of that, we went in and had some discussion on a few of our regional transportation corridors, focusing on the corridors that impact communities that were there. So we discussed both the Big Thompson and Little Thompson River corridor, the South Platte American Discovery corridor, number 8, so the BNSF Fort Collins Berthoud, and that is the one that has extended north into Wellington, and then Front Range Trail West. And then we had a little off-site field trip just south of Milliken to the Wildcat Mounds. A property owner allowed us to go out and see where the trail, where the South Platte American Discovery Trail will go through, and looking at some of the difficulties getting through that area and have a discussion around that. So it was a really good event. I think it gave the group some guidance on what we can do to help our smaller communities with their bike ped planning efforts. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any updates from our regional transit agencies?
No, we canceled our meeting last night. No major updates.
Mobility updates.
No major updates, things are going great. I don't know if Aaron has any updates, he's online.
Thanks, Ellen.
We're good.
Very good.
Oh, do you want to talk about it since you were there?
Oh, yeah.
For the meeting? Yeah.
So last Friday, we did receive, we being the mobility team worked on this mostly. We did receive a Ruby Bridges Walk to School Day event grant. And that event was last Friday. And we worked with Goal High School students. The event went very well. As part of that, we did have a little competition where they write poetry or some sort of artistic expression about transportation, and the top, is it 2 or 3?
It'll be 2.
Top 2 winners will receive a bike. We were able to get 2 bikes, 40 bike walks, so one for everyone who attended. Part of that grant also included food, so we were able to feed people while we were there. Drinks being like coffee, things like that, appropriate drinks. As well as getting a bike rack for the school, and then giving them a contact with the city really to ensure that that bike rack is put in an appropriate place. So yeah, the event went very well, I would say, and I would recommend as we have more funding opportunities come down the line to do more.
Very exciting. Can you share the poetry or art?
Yeah, so we're still going to be scoring them because they're still coming in slowly. But yeah, we'll be presenting those prizes probably next week because they're still trickling in. But the students either wrote about one of their best transportation memories or one of their transportation challenges. So as we've been reading through them, they're very touching.
If you do like a social media post, we would repost that.
Yeah, we'll have
Yeah, we definitely will take lots of pictures awarding the bikes and yeah.
All right, reports. So the November Planning Council meeting summary report is written report in your packet. The Mobility Committee updates also written report in your packet. NFRMPO Air Quality Program updates written report in your packet. Go to a roundtable.
So I have a few updates. We were able to process a CMAT flex request for Greeley Mass Transit for the US 34 buses. So that has gone through and been approved. We will also, I just wanted to give everyone a heads up. I know several people who were in the meeting or were earlier or here. We're on this email, but the quadrennial review, so that is a review of the MPO every 4 years. So ours will be in 2026, our previous one was in 2022. So if you receive those emails, they'll be from Emma with FTA or Aaron with MHWA, or also possibly from me. Just please let us know who the folks are that need to be involved in that, and then timing and calendars. So, but that'll be in 2026 spring usually. So we also have our regional travel demand model RFP out. Proposals are due from consulting firms on the 12th of December. And then we will work to get the proposals scored and then consultants selected. And then presentations. I'm looking for presentations from anyone who has a completed MPO funded project. If you would like to present on your project at the December TAC meeting, we'd love to do that. Try to have more informational, fun presentations at the December meeting. So if you have a project that's been completed, we'd love to hear about it. So
If we can get before and after, then maybe that would be fun.
and that's it. That's all I have.
I don't have anything specific.
I'd be happy to present on the siphon overpass. Did we finish that meeting? We just swung the bridge in place earlier this month, and the power trail and the connection to the new Mail Creek Trail will be open by early December.
Thanks for the cool videos and photos. Of them.
Yeah, that bridge is huge. Once I saw it, there's like next to it for scale, I was like,
We realized we should have had a community event because they were.
You had a community in it,
Yeah.
yeah. Very needed connection.
Yeah.
happy Thanksgiving.
We have a public meeting starting at 4:30 about the merge project at Greeley West High School. CMGC RFQ will be released imminently, and we're working to get the raise and roll grants executed.
our RFP for the Front Range Passenger Rail stationary planning closed, so we're gonna be reviewing those. That was a joint grant with Fort Collins, so very excited for that project.
So Senate Bill 2530. Everyone's favorite topic. Boo. Please remember to do that. The legislative due date is December 31st, 2025. Would encourage you to work on that a little bit earlier since holidays are holidays. So if there are any questions, anything comes up along the way, please reach out. I also have my email signature, a way to put time on my calendar directly. That could be a little easier than going back and forth. If you want to do that, I'm more than happy to email back and forth, but that's also an option as well. So if there's any questions along the way, any issues, any clarifications, don't hesitate to reach out, and we can work through that.
So we have our household survey data for North Front Range region, finally. And I will be in the consultant scoring committee. So I was informed today about that, so I'm happy about that. So.
All right. On October 15th, you all received an email from me about the NFRMPO Freight Stakeholder Survey. We would love it if you all would take that, and we'll also put a link in the chat. And then for the transit agencies, I'll be sending a HALOP email, HALOP being the annual listing of federally obligated projects, along with an email for the POP program projects. And that's all.
So I am looking for article ideas for the MPO's January newsletter. Our staff has already come up with some ideas, so I may be reaching out to some of you for what if you wanted to include something in our newsletter. But if anyone has anything they'd like to offer up as an article, feel free to let me know now, or you can email me.
Our planning department's moving forward with the comprehensive plan update. So data gathering now, kind of moving into trying to figure out how to take it to the public. So just moving forward with that. It kind of top of mind for at least 12 months or so. Good stuff. So,
Anyone online? None. I can present about TAC in 34 minutes. I've got them here, so we can bring something in December. Anything else? With that, if anybody has any agenda topic suggestions, feel free to share. And our next meeting will be December 17th.